أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وعلى بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله أعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Lessons from the life of Nabi Musa alayhi salam has been our topic. Tonight is our sixth discussion in the story of the Quran about that man who is the most mentioned in the Quran. So we have reached now a level or a point in our series now where, if you remember last night, he confronted a second fight between that same Israelite and now a new Egyptian. When things got a little bit heated, the Egyptian turns to him and says, are you going to kill me the way you killed the Egyptian from yesterday? Musa's reaction, meaning he fled, he left, he totally took off. This Egyptian realized that it was in fact Musa that killed this Egyptian and went running to Fir'aun. And where I left you guys yesterday, the cliffhanger, was that Fir'aun now collects his witnesses, his evidence, and then he declares that Musa was responsible for killing an Egyptian. A warrant is set out for his arrest. Find Musa, bring him to me. I'm going to kill him on the spot. Okay? Now what happens now? Inside the inner circles of Fir'aun, there's a man by the name of Ezekiel. Ezekiel is the Old Testament biblical name. He's known as Hezekiel or Hiraqil. Both of them are there in our books, in the sources at least that I have seen. He was known as, his laqab later on was Mu'min al Fir'aun, a believer inside the circles of Fir'aun. Okay, this was a man who sat actually in the secret meetings of Fir'aun, only his tight inner circle, but inside this man was a believer in God. Okay, he saw Fir'aun, and inside, the way the books describe him, that he was just always waiting for some savior, some revolution, someone to come and topple this tyrant of a man named Fir'aun. He is now, of course, he's there in the circles. He's overhearing now what? That now a warrant for his arrest, for Musa's arrest, has been sent out, has been declared, and that the plan for Fir'aun is for him to kill Nabi Musa. Okay? So he decides now, because he's recognized that Musa is that hope that I have been waiting for to come and throw this government down. I have been waiting for this man and this revolution. I'm not going to let them get to Musa before I do. So he leaves the palace, bolts out of there in search for Musa, just to tell him that, look, they know it was you. Okay? He searches, goes inside the street. Where is he? He finds Musa. Finds Musa and says, Musa, Fir'aun knows that you killed the Egyptian. Okay? That was the one thing that Musa was worried about, that I don't want Fir'aun to find out. And he says, look, he's already sent out his men to arrest you, and you know that when he arrests somebody, he's going to kill them. If I were you, I'd leave town. Musa knew this individual, Hiraqil, Hizkil, right? Now, mind you, kind of a disclaimer, there's also a prophet named Prophet Hizkil as well. That's a different person. This is a different person. There's no match there, okay? So Musa now trusts everything that he says. He listens to what this man says. He takes it very, he knows exactly this guy is in the inner circles of Fir'aun. He has the inside scoop of what's going on. Okay? At that moment, at the very moment that this man said to leave town, Musa leaves Egypt. He leaves Egypt. Okay? Doesn't tell his family, doesn't tell any, not his siblings, not his mother, nobody. With the clothes on his back, the shoes on his feet, he leaves town. He sets off on this extremely difficult journey on foot. On foot. Okay? And now enters another phase in Nabi Musa's life. The exit from Egypt and the entering of another city. Okay? Now, Hadith tells us, the various sources tell us, that this entire journey that he was on, he just ran. He just kept going, kept going, kept going. Didn't know where he was going. Didn't have, any food with him, nothing. The way that the books describe this man's journey was a very, very difficult one. He survived on the leaves of trees and plants. Whatever wild fruits he could find, he did. At the end of his journey of 8 days, his feet were bleeding from the soles. Okay? How he slept, where he slept, all of that was a very difficult journey, but he had to go. He had to leave. And they say that on the 8th day of his journey, he wakes up in the morning to the sound of people, of sheep, of shepherds, the flocks of sheep. And he looks off in the distance and he sees a well. Around the well, there's a bunch of shepherds now with their sheep, and the sheep there, of course, are either they're drinking the water from the well or the shepherds are filling their buckets for the water. First sign of any sort of life or city or anything, he moves towards the city. The city is known as what? As Midian, or Midian as sometimes it's referred to. This is a city that is the south of Syria, in the northern part of Africa, completely outside the domain of Pharaoh's government. So at least he's free from the clutches of Pharaoh's domain, meaning doesn't have any sort of power or any sort of domain in this area. Okay? Now enters this stage in his life. The next 10 years of his life, Musa, he stays in this city, and it is labeled as the best 10 years of his life. A number of things happen in these 10 years now. Let's find out one by one what happens. Okay? The first thing that ends up happening is that he's watching this small little gathering around a well of shepherds and their flocks of sheep, and they're all there, of course, getting their sheep, the thirst is being quenched and the buckets are being filled. And off to the side now, he sees these two women who have their sheep as well. He's watching them, and men are coming from here, no regard for anybody. Just stick your head in there. You know how it is sometimes, right? Get in there, every man for himself, or get your sheep, get the water and go. Get the water and go. And these two women are off to the side. Now you have to understand something about Musa now, okay? That incident with the Egyptian and the Israel, the two fights that he was involved in, and seeing Pharaoh and what he was doing since day number one in his life has really, really now created this love he has to support those who are madloom. Any instance of oppression or dhulm or injustice or inequality, anything, it really resonates with Musa. And he can no longer be quiet. One silver lining in that that whole fight incident was that he realized that I need to sometimes speak up against people who are being taken advantage of. And this precise moment now, this precise event, now mind you, this man is tired, this man is hungry, this man is thirsty, this man's feet are just completely cut up, hasn't slept or eaten in days. If it was you and me, maybe if it was me, I think, you know what, give me some of that water. Can I get a meal in town? Where am I? But right away, his first instance is to approach the two women. He says, what are you doing here? Everything okay? Like, why are you sitting here? And the women said, well, we, in a very respectful way, we can't get in there. I mean, there's men everywhere, right? So they're respectful women, right? We're waiting until a moment for us to go in and get water for our sheep as well, right? And then before even Nabi Musa could ask, the verse in the Quran, which we'll go through at the end, like what we always do, one of the women had felt a need to say, "Wa abuna sheikhun kabir," and oh, by the way, our father is a very old man. If you're wondering why we women are doing this, Our father is old. We don't have a male figure inside the house, a brother or anybody else. So we are asked to do this. But we can't just get in there, right? And you know how it is sometimes, right? Men just kind of like, they have no disregard. Is there a woman there waiting, this and that? And this inequality for Musa was very upsetting. It was very upsetting. He just couldn't stand it. He said, I'll get you guys water. I'll get your sheep water. Don't worry. Again, tired, thirsty, feet are broken, everything, sleep deprived, everything. He grabs these massive buckets, tosses inside the well. Now, when you fill these buckets with water, they're very, very heavy. Sometimes the reports say it takes 8 to 10 men just to pull one bucket at a time. Musa did it all by himself, without anyone's help. Okay? Filled the buckets, and gave it to the women, and let them go. Okay? And now he realizes that he is here in a town. And he's looking around and he's really begging Allah, really praying to Allah, Allah, please let this be like an avenue of like salvation for me. Like, let this be the proper route that I took, the proper path that I took. Like, let this be kind of like a fresh start for me. What he didn't realize is this one act that he did in filling the water left such an impact on those women and their father that they describe as to be an older man, that when those women now went back home, now with water in their buckets, their father was surprised. Their father was surprised. They're like, he says that you're back quite early. Like usually you take a long time to get these buckets full of water. What happened this time? And they described the entire story. This man came, he asked us what we're doing, he took our buckets, he filled it for us, he let us go. Okay? And that man was Prophet Shuaib. Prophet Shuaib now, being a prophet of Allah, he's been residing there in Midian for many, many years. He's a man of gratitude, a man of God, a man of consciousness, a man of blessing, of course. He felt the need to at least acknowledge this man who did this huge favor for my daughters. Let's go back to Musa now. Musa is sitting there now, he's praying Allah, basically, is this where I should be? Asking Allah. And in that asking, one of the women now come back to Musa. Okay? Come back to Musa. And the way that the Quran describes the way that this woman spoke to Nabi Musa, and we'll go through the Quran a little bit later on, but she was very, very humble, very modest, bashful, shy almost, very respectful in her demeanor. It's amazing how sometimes the Quran now introduces these small little points for us to ponder on. Small little things. Like for example, if you remember, I mentioned that when Nabi Musa first left the palace of Pharaoh and had that first encounter of the Egyptian and the Israelite fighting, the very first fight now, it says that he left what? Hina ghafla. At the time of ghaflat. What does that mean, time of ghaflat? At the time of heedlessness. Meaning what? The night. Telling us Allah himself is saying that, look, be very, very conscious of the nights. Here as well, the way that Allah describes the way this woman approaches Nabi Musa in the most respectful, modest, right, shy way. And she says to Nabi Musa that my father wishes to invite you and to give you ajr and reward for what you've done. Now some say that one came, some say that two came, meaning two of the women came. Needless to say, he accepts the invitation. This is a man who hasn't eaten in days. He's surviving off of leaves and plants of a tree. He gets an invite for dinner now. Can you imagine for a moment what's going on inside of his heart? 8 days of extremely difficult travel. Finds his way to this city south of Sham, away from Fir'aun's his control. His jurisdiction is a better word, his control. And now he gets an invite for dinner. What looks like to be a very pious family. They begin to walk towards their house. And this is where I want us to understand some akhlaqi, but it's a very famous point that I know a lot of my elders have probably heard. I don't know how many of my youth have heard this, but now Nabi Musa has no idea where he's going. So now they begin to walk towards the father's house. Okay? Now, an akhlaqi point, mahram and non-mahram interaction. Let's be very careful. Let's understand. Musa is a man of God. Musa is a man of ethics and values and morals, right? A man of akhlaq. A man of dignity. And obviously he respects women because his first eyes were not on the water at the well. His first eyes laid on these two women who were waiting and waiting and waiting, and not one single man could even stop to see anything beyond what he was going through, oblivious to the needs of anybody else. Especially as women, right? Even at that moment, the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now includes this in the Quran points to the fact that Allah is teaching us men a lesson to respect women. Not just your woman, respect all women. At that moment, can you imagine, this man is dying of thirst. I would jump inside the well, but he was worried about those women. So now they move towards the father's house. But then Nabi Musa does something very special. He says, naturally, the person who knows where they're going is the one to be followed, right? If they're walking towards this woman's house, she would follow, she would lead, he would follow, okay? But that's not a proper thing to do with a woman, especially a woman who's non-mahram to you. So Musa now, in his akhlaq, in his humility, in his humbleness, he says, I will walk in front of you, you lead me from the back. Why? Two reasons possibly, given in tafsir and also in Agha Jazairi's book, Qissah-e Anbiya. Number one is that he understood that out of respect for a woman, look, if a woman is walking, even today, a woman is walking and right behind her is a man, she's bound to feel uncomfortable. She's bound to feel uncomfortable. Especially if it's just a strange man that you just met. Doesn't matter if he did something big for her, filled her bucket of water, got her sheep water. Doesn't matter. She will still feel uncomfortable. Musa is fully aware of that uncomfortable nature of the woman, number one. Number two, it's not a good image for a man to be walking that closely behind random women. He just got into town. So he was fully conscious of the fact that there are certain principles of behavior with non-mahram men and women. Especially with women. Sometimes today I see men who are too comfortable with women, especially women of other people's households. The laughing, the joking, it's just too comfortable, the staring, and it's just not right. I'm sorry. This story tells us that back then, even today, we have to be, as men, conscious of the fact that inside, built into the fitrat of the woman, is this ghairat, is this respect, this humbleness. And we have to be conscious of that. We can't put her in positions where she's uncomfortable, stand too close to her, right? Say inappropriate jokes in front of her, right? Refer to her using her first name, for example, especially in front of her husband or her son or her brother or her father. Let's be very respectful when it comes to our sisters and our women. So Nabi Musa now says, I'm gonna walk in the front, you lead me from behind. This was such an act that was so beautiful for those sisters, for those women. Later on now we'll find out why. Okay? Now they arrive at the old man's house. And Agha Jazairi's book says that when Nabi Musa met the old man, how he knew, I don't know. This is all before his prophethood now. But he knew right away this was Prophet Shuaib. And I cannot express to you the elation that the books have described inside Musa. Imagine for a moment now. Imagine now you have left the palace of Fir'aun, escaped the madness of his oppression, living a double life, living one life in the palace, pretending to be the heir apparent of this Fir'aunic command, but deep down inside the heart of your hearts, you bleed for the Madlumin. Living that double life, that dual life, multiple lives sometimes is daunting. It's taxing, it's tiring. It's almost like he just felt this sigh of relief. Right? There was, you enter homes where there is taqwa, there is piety, there's people of God in the home. There's a sense of calmness in that house. The way the books describe Nabi Musa entering into Nabi Shuaib's house was a sense of calmness, itminan, sukoon, almost as if I don't need to put on a face anymore. I don't need to pretend to be someone I'm not. And they were both men of God. So Prophet Shuaib says, I appreciate what you've done for my daughters. Where are you? What's your story? Where are you coming from? Who are you? You're not someone that's from here. And Nabi Musa tells Nabi Shuaib his entire story. His entire story. And Nabi Shuaib says that, look, you're safe here. This is your dwelling. There's a room here. You can be here for as long as you want. Later on now, there's some contract in terms of times of years and blah, blah, blah. But initially he says, look, you're comfortable here. No one's going to bother you here. You're fine here. Right? Imagine now, again, I'll say it over and over again, not putting on that face. Right now, a lot of us are in seclusion. Hopefully, a lot of us are working from home. Right? We don't need to put on that face outside the home. We can really discover the true inner self of ourselves inside of our homes right now, in this seclusion, isolation, quarantine, and really discover the beauty of my faith inside of me. That sukoon, that itminan that Musa felt, that I'm home now. This is where I want to be. And so he sets up shop, he gets a bite to eat, he rests up a little bit, and then those daughters approach their father. And they give him a brilliant idea. And another point of reflection for us here. It was such a good point. What was that suggestion? They would say, look, Baba, you need some help with your work. This individual is young, he's strong, and he's pious. He's God conscious. He's God conscious. Now, it's understood that they could understand, they know why he was strong. I mean, the man lifted those buckets of water all by himself. When it took 8-10 men by the well, he just came in like a champ and just grabbed that bucket with 1 and 2 hands. But how do they measure his taqwa and his piety? Based on what? It goes back to that one moment of respect that Nabi Musa gave those women. It's not munasib. It's not appropriate for a non-mahram man to be seen like this with you leading and me following. Shaitan is everywhere. That one moment now, because this is now, this you won't find in the Quran. This is actually a hadith by Imam Rada alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, in Bahar, where he says, the father actually asked the daughter, how can you measure his taqwa? On what basis are you saying that he's God conscious? Like he wanted to know what is it that she saw or they saw in him. And they relate the story that on the way here, he was the one that walked in the front and we were in the back. Okay, and it's just that observation, that level. Look, when you are that high in spirituality, when you're that God conscious, you see God consciousness everywhere else. Your lens becomes that of God consciousness. So you pick up even the smallest acts of God consciousness and say, you know what, there's piety inside. You know, sometimes, I tell you, sometimes my parents, I want you to pick up these things with your kids, with your teenage boys, teenage girls. You know, a lot of the youth out there, they have moments and they have jewels and gems inside them. And sometimes they show you those moments of God consciousness to the point where you feel like, you know what, not all is lost. There's a brilliant side to my child. Accept that. Celebrate it. If for the past 5-6 days they are fasting, for example, okay? Let's appreciate that. Let's acknowledge that, okay, they're doing their best in this difficult moment now, right? Where they have to somehow pass time, right? Sometimes fasting during school is easier because the time passes. You're at home nowadays. Yes, maybe you'd like them to read more Quran and more du'as and do more ibadat, and that's fine, but it doesn't mean you don't acknowledge what they're doing already, right? These sisters now are telling their father that this one moment was enough for us to know this man is a God-conscious individual. So what better now, Baba? He has the physical strength, he has the spiritual strength as well. And then, you know, the next morning, conversation now begins, and Nabi Shuaib now speaks to Nabi Musa and offers him a deal, or offers him some employment. Okay. Remember the dua of Nabi Musa now. Remember the dua of Musa, entering this city not knowing what's going on. Okay? Not knowing what's going on. Just asking Allah, Allah, please, let this be the right path. Whatever you send for me, I'll be more than happy. Okay? And this was that dua that he said after giving the buckets of water to those sisters. He doesn't say, Allah, I want this, I want that. No, he goes, whatever you send for me, I'll be more than happy. I'll be more than happy. Now all of a sudden these doors open. Can you imagine? He meets Prophet Shuaib in his journey. 8 days of suffering, ends up in a random town. He has no idea where he is. And lo and behold, right in front of him is a prophet of God. Are you kidding me? Seriously? I mean, how did God carve that path? We have no idea. That's why sometimes we have to just submit to his plan. There's a plan he has for you. There's a plan he has for me. And sometimes we fight the plan, we ruin the plan, we change the plan, and it's like God saying, look, I had a plan for you, just let me execute my plan. Okay, it took that man in Fir'aun's palace, some random man that later on became someone who's famously known as a mu'min ali Fir'aun, to go and find Musa before Fir'aun's boys did. He said, look, get out of town, go. 8 days he travels, somehow survives, ends up in this city at the door of the Prophet of God. And now Prophet Shuaib the next day sits down with Nabi Musa, says, I want you to work for me. I want you to work for me. Not only is now he has accommodation, he's got a room, he now has a source of income. And then he offers him one more thing. Okay? And that one more thing I'll leave for tomorrow, inshallah. Let's leave the story there. Let's come to the Quran in the verses. Let's open up your Qurans, please. Surah Qasas, Surah number 28. Now we're going to look at 7 different verses when it comes to this story I just told you. So verses 20 all the way down to 26. In the same Surah, Surah Qasas, the 28th chapter of the Quran, verses 20 all the way down to 26. Please, let's have your Quran opened. As a wife, as a husband, as a family, all of you hopefully are gathered around, right? And let's open up the Quran and let's find out what it says about what I just mentioned to you, inshallah. Verse number 20 talks about that moment where Ezekiel comes to him and says, you better go, right? وَجَاءَ رَجُلٌ Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Now this is now where this man comes and finds Musa and says, look, they know that you killed that Egyptian, you better leave town. Verse number 20 of the 28th chapter, 28:20. Surah Qasas, verse number 20. How many more times should I say it? وَجَاءَ رَجُلٌ مِّنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ. Okay, a man came running from the remotest part of the city, meaning from the palace. He said, Musa, look, قَالَ يَا Musa. These guys, these chiefs, Fir'aun's men have consulted, and now you better leave at once because they have every plan. لِيَقْتُلُوكَ. They're going to kill you. So what do? فَخْرُجْ إِنِّي لَكَ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Go from here. You'll trust me. You'll find me one of the ones who wish well for you. I'm not somebody who you can't trust. You can trust me. Like, you know me. I'm going to do dua for you. You have to be protected. You're that one person, that one revolution that I was waiting for. So go, preserve yourself, protect yourself, safeguard yourself, and go from here. Leave town. Verse number 21. So Musa left. The next verse now down. فَخَرَجَ مِنْهَا. He left. He left in a state of خَائِفًا يَتَرَقَّبْ. He was scared and he was waiting. He thought, okay, like the way that the tafsir says and the way that some of the other books say about this story is that he figured that Fir'aun's men would catch up to him, find him, and kill him. So he was just waiting for that. Can you imagine the level of anxiety and stress this man has? Okay, even the prophets of God feel stress and anxiety. My individuals out there who are dealing with mental health issues out there, I ask you, please, don't ever assume that anxiety and fear and stress is a sign of you having low iman and low faith, or not relying on God, or not being grateful to God. No, this is a prophet of God, an ulul azam prophet of God that he chooses to speak to later on in the story. This is a man who says, خَائِفًا يَتَرَقَّبْ. He was scared. He ran for his life. Then he prays to Allah, constantly praying to Allah. قَالَ رَبِّي نَجِّنِي مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. Just free me from this. I don't want any part of Fir'aun's people or his palace or the unjust ways. I just want to be freed from that. So he leaves. he leaves. Okay? And then he ends up in, Midian, or Midian as called sometimes. Midian sometimes in the Old Testament. Okay? I have a few minutes left. In fact, I'm over my time now. But we'll go over these verses right now, very quickly. So he turns to his face towards Midian and he says what? Now the next verse number 22, he says, قَالَ عَسَى رَبِّي أَنْ يَهْدِيَنِي سَوَاءَ السَّبِيلِ. That maybe, he says, maybe my Lord will guide me in the right path. That's that moment now. He's filled up the buckets now. The women are on their way back to their father's house. He turns to Allah, says, maybe this is where I should be. Hopefully now this is where the right path should be. Okay? Now come to the next verse now. Verse number 23 now. Okay, this is where now he finds these two women. Okay, and I'll just go over the English. Okay, and when he came to the water of Midian, he found on it a group of men watering, and found besides them two women. There were two women, what? Keeping back their flocks. They were obviously very away from everybody else, and so he approached them. قَالَ مَا خَطْبُكُمَا. What do you, like, everything okay? Yeah, what's the khabar here? So, what's happening? Is everything okay? You're a little bit away, right? And that's when they say that we cannot water until the shepherds take away their sheep. Until these men leave, then we'll get in there, right? And then right away, like I said before, وَأَبُونَا شَيْخٌ كَبِيرٌ. The end of verse number 23. And oh, by the way, in case you're wondering why we women are sitting here, our father is very, very old. Okay? Another testament to the sheer piety of these two women, that before you could ask, where are the men of your house, we have to now explain that we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the fact that there was no male inside of our house. The one male is our father. He's too old now to do this. So what happens now? Now Musa now waters and gets water for the sheep, right? فَسَقَى لَهُمَا. Okay? Then went back to the shade. So he sent them on the way back, went back to the shade, and continued now to what? To beg to Allah, to pray to Allah. Look at the way that he asked Allah. He says, Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin faqir. Whatever you send for me, I'm in need of it, I'll accept it. Does not say, I want this, I want that, I'm a prophet of God, 8 days of a very difficult journey, give me this, give me that. No, very humble way of praying to God. Whatever you send to me, I will accept. And look where he ends up. Look where he ends up. Okay? And then, after this dua, one of them, this version says, one of them, أَحْدَاهُمَا, comes back to Nabi Musa with news that what? My father wants to see you. My father wants to give you some, appreciate what you've done for us. Then one of the two women came to him walking bashfully. Again, I talked about the idea. فَجَاءَتْهُمْ إِحْدَاهُمَا تَمْشِي. Tamshi in Arabic means a very humble way of walking and talking. Okay? Another point of akhlaq for our sisters. When you speak to men, when you speak to boys, when you speak to people who are non-mahram, and you have to speak to them, be a little bit humble. Be soft in your tone. Don't be so free and so aggressive. Right? It's not becoming of a woman to be that forward and that comfortable with a non-mahram man. There should be a level of uncomfortableness between you and the non-mahram man. Okay? She said, my father invites you that he may give you the reward of your having watered for us. So when he came to him and gave to him the account, he said, fear not, you are secure from the unjust people. Meaning what? Now, when Musa now goes back to Nabi Shuaib and tells him of the entire story, he says what? He goes, don't worry about it. La takhaf. Don't worry. Right? Najawta min al-qawmi al-zalimin. You are now secure from those people. This is your home now. You can relax now. Those people are far, far away. They won't affect you. The story of Musa walking ahead of it is not in the Quran. Not at least here in these verses. It is in Bahar. It's very well known in Tafsir as well. The last verse I want to leave with you in the Iltimas Dua is that suggestion by the daughters to their father to employ him, as he's not only strong, he's also one of the more pious ones. So then now they say, قَالَتْ إِحْدَاهُمَا يَا أَبَتِي. Verse number 26 to the Qasas. One of them says, one of the women says, girl says to his father, Ya father, employ him. Hire him. You need help. Hire him. إِنَّ خَيْرًا مِنَ اسْتَأْجَرْتَ الْقَوِيُّ Amin. He's qawi, he's strong. He's also amin. He's trustworthy. He's faithful. He's a good man. How do we know that? Based on that akhlaq that he showed on the way towards the old man's house. Okay, so now Musa is in Prophet Shuaib's house. Okay, offered this Quranic to work for him. There's another offer that Nabi Shuaib makes to Nabi Musa, but I'm going to leave that for tomorrow, inshallah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept our qaleel efforts to understand your book, understand your words, so we can apply them, we can be better people because of them, and inshallah we can be ready for the Imam when they come, inshallah. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.